Luke from Leaderboard Customs here, and you're either deciding on if you want to buy a stencil or you already have. I want to walk you through how to use the stencil. I've got this request a lot, so I wanted just to make a quick YouTube video so you can see. This is how the stencils arrive. They'll be in an envelope just like this. Rip it open. And here's the stencil and the transfer sheet. For now, let's go ahead and set aside the transfer sheet. But this is what it looks like, and this is what we'll use. And this is the stencil. Yours may be a different color. They're all at random. But this is the elephant print. And I will show you how to use these, either using the positive or the negative portion of the stencil. Okay, so I got a piece of leather right here that I just quickly painted gray. And I'm going to recreate an elephant print just like this, with the gray as the background and black being the vines. And I'll show you how you can get that same look. And this is the exact same stencil that's here. So this is what it'll look like. Now, normally I do not have the luxury of working on a flat surface, since 98% of the stencils I'm using and use are on shoes. But this will give us an easy way to show you what I do and how I do it. It's hard to see on camera, but the stencil is this big. It ends right here, starts up here, and is this whole sheet minus this portion right here. So this portion is gone. It's not cut, but up here is. What I like to do, if I were you when you first get this, go ahead and just cut this portion off. And you can keep it for other stencils or other things that you'll need. And since I'm only using a small piece of the entire vinyl, what I would do is I'd get some tape and mock up about the size that you'll need. So what I'll do here is cut this so I know the length from top to bottom. Okay. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll just take this piece of tape, now I'm not going to put the tape on here because it's going to stick to the stencil and that'll cause some issues. So what I'll simply do is turn it backwards and roughly give myself the dimensions. So now I'll take and add a little bit of a cushion. So I cut it a little bit wider than I needed, but that's going to be perfect. So since I am trying to recreate this, the same look, the gray is going to be the background. The black vines are going to be the foreground. So what I need to do is remove the vines, which would be the positive portion of the stencil. So next, to save and get as much use out of not only the vinyl, but the transfer tape, I'm going to do the same thing here. Take a sharp X-Acto knife and cut. And what I like about this transfer tape is it has these boxes and lines that you can use to help measure. So now you still have all of this transfer sheet left, and all we used was exactly what we needed right here. So what you do is take off the back, line up your stencil. So we're going to take our transfer tape, line it up with our stencil, and then from here, if you have a tool like I have, you can use anything. You can use a credit card, you can use anything that's a little bit strong that you can just adhere the transfer tape to the stencil, then we're good. Once you have the transfer tape stuck on there, you're going to take the back of the stencil itself. You're going to peel back the paper as is. Discard that. Now I've got my stencil and the transfer tape right here. I'm going to lay it on what I'm going to transfer the stencil to. Okay. Now what I'm going to do here is I just want the stencil to adhere to whatever I'm putting the stencil on. So in this case, this piece of leather. Now you don't want to go crazy at this point because you still need to pull up some of the stencil. So you don't need to use a heat gun or hair dryer or anything. Right now we're just trying to get the stencil to adhere to whatever we're putting it on. And then we need to get the transfer tape off. So what I do is I get a tool like this, which I got from my Cricut machine. I like to bend back the stencil, just the corner of it, like this. And I just keep pressing down and pull. And the reason why I do that is because it keeps the pressure down, making sure that the stencil itself does not pop up, that the only thing that's coming off is the transfer tape. And I like to do the corner and just keep going at an edge, and it makes it super easy to pull off. And just kind of reorientate your fingers after every few centimeters. And there we go. Okay, then you can discard this, or if you need it for if you're going to do something immediately after another piece, you can just still keep using this until it loses all the adhesion on it. And here we are. Now you've got your stencil completely on your piece that you're going to paint. Now we need to figure out what we're going to take off. Now again, the leather I'm using is gray, so the background is going to be gray. So the only thing I need to pull up where the new paint's going to be, which is the black, I need to pull up these vines. The easiest way for me is I just go in here and look for a vine, and I gently pry it off. And same thing, I just take my finger, grab the back of it, and I'm pressing down while pulling. So I'm actually putting pressure down, and it comes off. Now some of these will come off easier than others. And doing this long enough, I know which portions to pull and which portions not to pull. But in this scenario, if you're not familiar with the elephant print, what I would do is get a picture and have it as reference, and then you can go in and just see all the times you find these little lines. Those are going to be the ones that you're going to pull up. Now, I won't bore you with this. I will go ahead and show you in time lapse what it looks like. First, I'm going to heat set the stencil for about 30 to 45 seconds just to ensure that the stencil is thoroughly adhering to the leather. And I'll press down and just make sure it has a really good solid connection. Okay, so that step is done. We know this stencil is adhering very well to the leather. Here is a way that will eliminate 90%, 95% of your touch-ups. Rather than going in straight and painting our black to get the final color we want, match the color of your paint for your first coat to match the base layer. So in this scenario, we're just going to go with the light gray. I'll pour a little bit right here. Okay, the reason why we do this, as good as these stencils are, and as much as I prepped it and made sure it was adhering to the leather, there could be very small portions where the paint will leak underneath the stencil. Not a ton, but enough for needing a touch-up. That's why we don't immediately go into the black paint. We go into the base color to match this. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. So, and in this case, I actually usually always do really thin coats of paint. I'm doing the same here, but I actually load my paintbrush with more paint and just spread it around like crazy. Just so that way, if there are any leaks, the paint that's going to leak underneath there will be the gray. And you won't even know it leaked because it's the same color. So again, good enough paint on my paintbrush just to make sure it's complete. Because again, if it's going to leak, I want it to do it now. And then I'm just going to go through and make sure that there's no excess paint. Because again, no matter what, we still want thin coats. And then make sure they're all even. Okay. I'm going to hit it with the heat gun for about 20-30 seconds. And then we'll be ready for the next phase. All right, so we got our first base coat after laying the stencil down. I waited an additional 15 to 20 minutes after hitting it with the heat gun. So I'm making sure that there is ample time in between coats. Again, this is just to make sure that we're getting a very, very durable product, especially if you're doing this on shoes. That's vitally important. So our next step is to go ahead and lay down some of the black paint. Okay, let's go in with our second coat of black paint. And this time we'll make sure that we have full coverage and get every inch of it covered up, get all that gray covered up. Okay, the second coat is done. I hit it with the heat gun to get it dry. Waited about 15-20 minutes. And now it's time for our third coat. And depending on how the coverage looks, it could be our last coat. Third coat looks great. I think we need to go one more coat. So this will be our fourth and final coat of the black. And then we can start removing the stencil after that. Okay, we're at our final step, which is to remove the stencil. Here is if you're customizing shoes. I'm going to show you something real fast here. Let me pull up one of these. Let me show you, which I should not have that issue here. If you pull up your stencil and you're pulling paint from your base layer up, strictly speaking about custom shoes, if you're pulling the paint up, it's because the shoes were not prepped properly, the material was not prepped properly. So when doing a stencil, it's very important to prep your shoes properly. All right, this is our finished product. This is what the Elephant Print stencil looks like. This is how it will come out if you follow the steps. If you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me a message on Etsy or Instagram or here on YouTube. Leaderboard Customs on all three. But hopefully this will give you an idea and help you want to make that purchase. If you already have purchased the stencil from me, thank you very much. If you have any questions, need any help, please do not hesitate to shoot me a message. I will be glad to help you in any way I can. All right, thank you so much.